Welcome everyone to this quick webinar on the European elections and specifically on how do we get out the votes in the next European elections. So as you probably know, they take place the 23rd until the 26th of May, so this is really next week. And in Germany, they're going to take place on the 26th, so this Sunday. So we have 8 days to go to actually mobilize our peers, our friends, our networks to get out the votes. So today I'm just going to walk you through the why this is even important, what did we learn from the research, and how can we deliver on the lack and the gaps of information which we were finding out about in our research phase. So this webinar is done by VoteEuropa, a transnational campaign. So why do we actually need to get out the votes? I think this is something which is concerning the minds and the thoughts of a lot of people right now. It's the rise of the right wing. So we see the election results of 2014 on the side. And we can see that 2014, we have the SD, the Socialist and Democrat, on the third place. And now looking at the projection of 2019, we can see that the political landscape gets a bit more scattered. So we have the Five Stars group and the Brexit Party coming up. We have Salvini's European Alliance coming up. And these are the projections of the parties who are going to be the most voted for in each of the countries. So we can clearly see that there is a right-wing shift also with the European conservatives and reformists, which are also clearly on the right, on the rise. So this is something which worries us all. And when we look at who's actually voting, who goes to the polls, we can see a very interesting picture. So the voter turnout in Germany 2014 at the European elections was 48%. This is really low in comparison to the national elections. For example, 2017, we see 72.2% as the overall voting turnout in Germany. But it even gets more desperate when we look at the voter turnout of young voters. So we define young voters at 18 to 24 years old. In the last European elections, this was 29% in Germany, but we can also see that in all the other countries, this is extremely low, even 6% of a voter turnout. This is also showing like the lack or the difference between the European elections and the national elections and how they are perceived. Because in the national elections 2017, we saw a voter turnout of young voters at around 68%. Which is clearly way higher. So we see young voters can actually vote, they just don't go that much to the European elections. However, there is another very interesting group, which is very particular to the European elections. It's the group of mobile voters. Mobile voters are union citizens, so they have the European citizenship, but they reside in another member state. So it might be that they have 1 or 2 citizenships and residing in another state. And this is actually quite a big group. So in Germany, this makes up about 6% of all the voters who can go to the European elections. And if we calculate a little bit, then we can see that they could actually make 5 seats of the European members of parliament coming from Germany. So this is quite a power this voting group holds. But what we see is that mobile voters are hardly registered. So at the moment, it's around 5% of mobile voters who can actually go vote in Germany, because you need to register first. And the voter turnout is extremely low. So this is estimated to be under 10%, although we don't have very reliable data about it. So this makes us wonder, how can we bring these 2 voting groups to the polls? And that's why we started the campaign VoteEuropa. VoteEuropa runs in 8 countries. So it runs in Italy, in Greece, in Poland, in Denmark, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, and in Germany. And in each of the countries, we have one person focusing on a target group within the spectrum. In Germany, we are focusing as a first group on the 25 to 35 years old mobile citizens, so the union citizens. And as a second target group, we have the 18 to 30 years old pro-migration youth. So in general, as we said, the European elections are not an election which gets a lot of attention. So this is why we obviously need to focus more on the already politicized, so the people who actually go vote also in the national elections, but who don't in the European elections, and who vote for an open, welcoming Europe. So in order to find out where is actually the problem, what can we do to make these people go vote, we did focus groups with different kinds of people in order to find out what motivates them, what could be the trigger points, and the second, what do they need? What can we deliver in order to make them go vote? So for the first group, we can see that what is a motivating factor, or what is a fear factor, is the right-wing shift and Brexit, obviously. Because these people experience the freedom of movement in Europe as they move from one country to the other. So seeing how Brexit is unfolding, how it's difficult, how people are trying to get European citizenship again, clearly is a fearful factor. And this also brings me to the second point, the importance of free movement. So this is really one thing which defines also their lives. So usually they go back and forth relatively often, or they still have family in one other member state. So this is a very European reason. And as a third, in terms of policy, the topic of employment and the education opportunities is really important. So kind of as a targeting motto, we address to the feeling of the Europeanness of the free movement. What do they actually need from us? What do they need in order to be able to get their votes out? So we need to have more awareness on the fact that you can actually vote from abroad. So if you have union citizenship and you live in another member state, you can decide if you're going to vote for one of your citizenships or for the country you're a resident in. So this information needs to be communicated, and the information about how you can actually go vote. So part of this is also, do you register? When is my registration deadline? How does this thing work? And as a third point, it's important that we communicate about how is this election going to interfere with my personal interest of free movement, of education and employment opportunities. For the second group, we also see that the right-wing shift is a fear factor. It's something which is concerning the group a lot. As a second one, it's migration as a European topic. So how does the topic of migration interlink with the European Parliament? How does my vote actually make a change in the migration policy? As a third one, which is very interesting, it's a feeling of responsibility. So usually this group has a good life, is happy, has a lot of privileges, and also have this feeling of I'm in a privileged position to do something. So as a kind of motto, we set up the voting in solidarity. What do they need? They need to know, what is really my impact? Why does it matter that I go vote? And as a second, who really aligns with my views? So who is really there for me? Who's really fighting for my values in the European Parliament? Who is an MEP I can trust, and who is someone who has a vision which aligns with my views? And as a third point, on a more technical side, it's giving information to voting by post, because I think that's also a factor why a lot of people don't go vote, because it's on this specific Sunday and you need to be there, and you need to be in the polling station. But in Germany, we do have the option of voting by post. So as we have now seen, these are the gaps of information. So now I would like to walk you through on exactly the snippets of information which could fill these gaps. So we will give information on who can vote and how can I vote, on what do we vote for actually, and where do I find information? Which resources can I share with my networks? So as said, the elections are taking place all over the European Union in the different countries from the 23rd until the 26th of May. So election law is confined to the national states. In Germany, we vote on May 26th. Who can vote? In Germany, all union citizens above 18. And as said, either for their country or countries of citizenship or for their country of residence. However, Germany, the registration deadline already passed, was the 5th of May. So everyone of the mobile citizens who didn't register for the German list are now going to vote for their country or countries of citizenship. How can you actually go vote? So if you're registered for the German list, as that, you vote by post. Everyone received a letter by the election organization. On this letter, you have a little number and you find a link. You go online, follow the link, type in the number, type in the address you actually live in, and the papers, the election papers, are going to be sent to you. You make the cross at home. You can sit patiently, take your time, but send them back before the 23rd. That's the safest, I think, because on the 26th, they need to be there 6 o'clock p.m. latest. If you're actually in the city you're in, you can also just give them to the polling station as soon as you're ready. Or you just go directly on Sunday to your local polling station. The address of that should also be indicated on the letter you got. So for the ones who vote abroad, so for the mobile citizens, we're now going to vote for, let's say, I have Romanian citizenship and I live in Germany. So I can now vote abroad for the Romanian list. Usually, or in the Romanian case, I can go to the embassy, which is close to me, and just bring my ID or passport. For some countries that differs, for example, for Poland, and there I need to look a bit more detail into it. And I can show you with another tool how this is going to look like. But usually, your embassy is your polling station. So what do we actually vote for? So we vote for the European Parliament. This is in this triangle, one of the legislative powers, same as the ministers, but these are also voted for in the national elections. So these two are directly voted for, and the European Parliament then votes the European Commission into office. We vote for national parties. So there is nothing new which is expecting us on the voting sheet from the debates and from the political atmosphere situation. We should know most of the parties on the sheet. This year in Germany, we have over 40 parties, so feel free to look into the long, long list. These national parties are then organized in European fractions in the European Parliament. So for example, here within the Socialists and Democrats sit SPD. Germany holds the most seats in the European Parliament. It has 96 seats, so your vote really matters a lot because you are voting for the most seats if you're voting for Germany. Another argumentation line might be that you can say, for example, in the case of a smaller member state, let's say Malta, has the least seats, but actually you need less votes for one seat than in Germany. So as a quick side information, you need approximately over 300,000 votes for one seat. So this was a lot of information, and obviously we can't have this on our minds all the time. So what we can do is give the resources to the people. How to vote in the EP19 elections. There's a great web page, it's called Space EU 2019. We can check it out later together. And there we can find out how do I vote when I have a different citizenship than my country of residence. How does it even work? As a second one, if we know how we vote, we want to know who we are voting for. So there we have a national aid application. It's called VoteEuropa. For everyone who have been voting in German elections already, probably you know it. In there are certain statements, and the parties all answered to these statements. So you can really find out what is their stance about it and what is their argumentation line. Another interesting tool is done by the Youth Forum. Check it out. There you can compare different candidates. And if you really want to know, now I know how I vote, who I'm voting for, but why should I really, does it really matter? Yes, it does. Check out Your Vote Matters, and you can play around a little and see how does my vote influence the decisions of the European Parliament. So these three things can always be shared with our networks. So what do we know now? So VoteEuropa Germany or Deutschland has a Facebook page. Have a look. We post most of the resources and argumentative videos. So share if you care. As a second point, this is really important. Talk to your friends, colleagues, networks, because from research, we know that voting is social. So what makes us vote is the feeling of all the other people are also voting. This is something you do out of tradition. This is just what you do. So talking to someone you trust is probably the #1 factor which makes you go vote. As a third one, show the resources. These resources are really a helpful tool to make clear where do I find which information and to give me a bit more security in the voting process. And what would be great, make your own Get Out the Vote video. What we see is to get out of the usual bubbles, it's really helpful to boost these videos via social media. And later we can talk about how you can do your own video. We have 8 days left, and this is the time where people are still deciding to go to vote, not that much more earlier. So we still have the time to get out your voice of why you go vote, what's your emotional reason, and to convey the information people need. So the question of how do we deliver the information? So how do we do a Get Out the Vote video? Step 1 is the personal part. So this is really what is getting people to vote, to make clear why you vote. And the more personal it is, the more people can actually connect to the story. So if we're just saying, you know, I'm really concerned about the right-wing shift, this is why I go vote, this is a little bit too little detail. So we need to do a bit more and to be a bit more concise. As a step 2, there is a technical part. So as said, people are lacking clear information. So after having the personal why do I really, we need the technical part of which information do I want to convey. Do I want to share a certain resource and say, use it, find it out, do it? Do I want to share the process of voting by post? Do I want to make clear how much your vote matters and you show the resource of Your Vote Matters? That could be things you can show in the technical part. Then step 3, what is really your call to action? So yeah, go vote, or yeah, get your voting by post now, send it now, whatever. This really depends on your line of argumentation. So in these easy 3 steps, you should be able to just make a go to vote video. And I would like to share an example from Sarah with you.